Om Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyahet Sarva Vignopashantahe. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhi Tamastu Ma Vetpishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Agajnana Patmarkam Gajanana Maharnisham Anekadantam Bhaktanam Ekadantam Upasmahe Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha Gurave Sarva Lokanam Vishaje Bhavaroginam Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Asmad Guru Charanaravindaabhyam Namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Jnananandamayam Devam Nirmalaspatikakritim Adharam Sarva Vidyanam Shri Hayagrivam Upasmahe Shri Hayagriva Namaha Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambam Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Shri Mahasaraswati Namaha Uma Komala Hastabja Sambhavitalatakam Hiranyakundalam Vande Kumaram Pushkarashracham Vetrivel Muruganik Har Haro Hara Lokaviryam Mahapujyam Sarvarakshakaram Vibhum Parvati Hridayanandam Shastaram Pranamamyaham Swamiye Sharanamayappa Vagarta Piva Sampraktau Vagarta Pratipattahe Jagadah Pitarau Vande Parvati Parameshwarau Shri Parvati Parameshwarabhyam Namaha Omalam Kujayan Venum Shyamaloyam Kumarakah Vedavedyam Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Asmad Guru Charanaravindaabhyam Namaha Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murare Shri Natha Narayana Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murare Shri Natha Narayana Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murare Shri Natha Narayana Vasudeva Pitambaram Karavirajita Chakra Shanka Kaumodaki Sarasijam Karuna Samudram Radha Sahayam Atisundara Mandahasam Vatalayesham Anisham Hridibhavayami Krishno Rakshatumam Chara Chara Guruhum Krishnam Namasye Sadha Krishne Naiva Surakshito Hamasakrite Krishnaya Dattam Hanaha Krishna Deva Samudbhavo Mama Vibho Krishnasya Dasosmyaham Krishne Bhakti Rajanchalastu Bhagavan He Krishna Dubhyam Namaha Shri Guruvayurappa Sharanam Namranham Sannidatte Satatamapi Purastairanabhyartitanapi Artan Kamanajasam Vitarati Paramananda Sandram Gatim Cha Itham Nisheshanabhyo Niravadika Phalah Parijato Hare Tvam Kshudram Tam Shakravati Dhrumamabhilashadi Vyartamarte Vrajohyam Shri Guruvayurappa Sharanam Shri Bhattapadam Anisham Hridibhavayami Vamshi Vibhushitakarat Navaniradabat Pitamharat Arunabimba Phaladharostat Purnendu Sundaramukat Aravindhanetrat Krishnat Param Kimapi Tattvamaham Najane Kairandum Kupinyan Vindumi Rakunnu Niraja Lochana Ninodhai Etinum Anyane Kumbirenda Toro Litiyel Nienne Palikyenai Krishna Hare Jaya Krishna Hare Jaya Krishna Hare Jaya Krishna Hare. Good morning everyone, welcome to the class. Okay, we'll get started with 23 today. Lakshmi Garu, will you be able to chant or in the class? No. throat issue.
Yeah, if you don't mind for today, because I'm still coughing.
No worries, no worries. I just wanted to check, that's why. Okay, Srividya, you can be a student. Sridevi Garu, you can be a student. And then Ramesh, you and maybe Sangeeta can be student in the second half. Okay. All right, so start with 23 today. So every couple of paragraphs, I'll just give you all a summary of what's happening in this. So, Prachetasastu bhagavanaparo hi dakshaha त्वत्सेवनं व्यदित सर्ग विवृद्धि कामः आविर्बभूवित तदा लसदष्टबाहुः तस्मै वरं ददि च तां च वधूम् असिक्नीम्. So, प्राचेतसस्तु भगवन्न परोहि dakshaha. Put the visarga there at the end, dakshaha and a comma. Next line is goes away. So, tvat sevanam vyadita sarga vivriddhi kamaha. Prachetasastu bhagavanna parohi dakshaha tvat sevanam vyadita sarga vivriddhi kamaha.
प्राचेतसस्तु भगवन्नपरो हि दक्षः त्वत्सेवनं व्यदितसर्गविवृत्तिकामः प्राचेतसस्तु भगवन्नपरो हि दक्षः त्वत्सेवनं व्यदितसर्गविवृत्तिकामः
प्राचेतसस्तु भगवन्नपरो हि दक्षः त्वत्सेवनं व्यधितसर्गविवृद्धिकामः प्राचेतसस्तु भगवन्नपरो हि दक्षः त्वत्सेवनं व्यधितसर्गविवृद्धिकामः
Avir bhabuvita tada lasad ashta, but you can say it together, lasad ashta bahuhu. Put a visarga there and comma at the end of it, bahuhu. Next line is goes away. Tasmai varam dadita tam cha vadum asikneem. So asikni is the name of a person. So vadum asikneem. Avirbabhuvita tada lasadashta bahuhu tasmai varam dadita tam cha vadum asikneem.
आविर्बभूवित तदा लसदष्टबाहुः तस्मै वरं ददति तां च वधूमसिक्नीम्.
Dadita. That's on the fourth line. Dadita.
ददित आविर्बभूवित तदा लसदष्टबाहुः तस्मै वरं ददित तां वधूमसिक्नीम्.
आविर्बभूवित तदा लसदष्टबाहुः तस्मै वरं ददिततां च वधूमसिक्नीम् आविर्बभूवित तदा लसदष्टबाहुः तस्मै वरं ददिततां च वधूमसिक्नीम्.
Stanza 2. Is it easy to do two lines or you want to do 4 lines? Like, I don't know. You want to do it 4 lines together? Okay.
Yeah, we can do.
So I'll just start breaking it from the beginning. So tasyatmajas. So tasya atmaja, 2 words combined together. Tasyatmajas tvayutam isha punas sahasram, comma Shri Naradasya vachasa tava margamapuhu naikatra vasamrishaye sa mumocha shapam, comma Bhaktotamas. So the next word, right, is it's a little of a tongue twister, the next part of it. So if you say it together, you'll be able to say it easily. But if you break it like this, it will get complicated. So when I'm saying it together, Bhaktotamas brishir, br, right? That br is coming there. So the actual words are Bhaktotamas, and then the Tvishir is coming, but that's very hard to say. So try to say the whole thing together. Bhakto tamas Tvishir anugrahameva mene. Okay, Tvishir anugraham eva mene. From that portion is easy. The br is coming, and the br, when you're only saying it together, you'll be able to say it. Tasyatmajas tvayutamisha punas sahasram श्रीनारदस्य वचसा तव मार्गमापुः नैकत्र वासमृषये समुमोच शापं भक्तोत्तमस्पृशिरनुग्रहमेव मेने
तस्यात्मजास्त्वयुतमीश पुनः सहस्रं श्रीनारदस्य वचसा तव मार्गमापुः नैकत्र वासमृषये स मुमोच शापं भक्तोत्तमस्त्वशिर अनुग्रहमेव मेने तस्यात्मजास्त्वयुतमीश पुनः सहस्रं श्रीनारदस्य वचसा तव मार्गमापुः नैकत्र वासमृषये समुमोच शापं भक्तोत्ततं स ऋषिर
underline bhaktottamas bhakta uttama bhaktottamas
त्रिशिरन् சேர்த்துக்கலாமா
ama
भक्तोत्ततं सत्विषिर अनुग्रहमेव मेने
but the first something is saying different bhaktottamas yeah
त्रिशिर தான் அந்த இடத்துல
ஆமா correct அதான் சொல்றேன் but if you separate it out that way the trishir it's very hard to say so the best way is to say the whole thing bhaktottamas brishir then you can say it as br
okay bhaktostamas brishir anugrahameva mene is that right
yeah that's right
तस्यात्मजास्त्वयुतमीश पुनः सहस्रं श्रीनारदस्य वचसा तव मार्गमापुः नैकत्र वासमृषये स मुमोच शापं भक्तोत्तमस्त्विषिरनुग्रहमेव मेने तस्यात्मजास्त्वयुतमीश पुनः सहस्रं श्रीनारदस्य वचसा तव मार्गमापुः नैकत्र वासमृषये समुमोच शापं भक्तोत्तमस्त्विषिरनुग्रहमेव मेने
Rashtya tato duhitribihi is there put a s duhitribis srijataha put a ich sound srijatah kulaughan comma dauhitra sunurata tasya sa vishwarupaha tvat stotra varmitam ajapayat indra so if you want to break it you can that whole word is said to be together but I'm just breaking it tvat stotra varmitam ajapayat indramajau comma or you can say the whole thing together as well so ajapayat indramajau comma deva tvadiya mahima khalu sarva jaitraha shashtya tato duhitribhis srijatah kulaughan dauhitra sunurata tasya savishwarupah त्वत्स्तोत्र वर्मितमजापयदिन्द्रमाजौ देवत्वदीय महिमा खलु सर्वजैत्रः
षष्ट्या ततो दुहितृभिः सृजतः कुलौघान् दौहित्रसूनुरत तस्य स विश्वरूपः त्वत्स्तोत्रवर्मितमजापयदिन्द्रमाजौ देवत्वदीयमहिमा खलु सर्वजैत्रः षष्ट्या ततो दुहितृभिः सृजतः कुलौघान् दौहित्रसूनुरत तस्य स विश्वरूपः त्वत्स्तोत्रवर्मितमजापयदिन्द्रमाजौ देवत्वदीयमहिमा खलु सर्वजैत्रः
षष्ट्या ततो दुहितृभिः सृजतः कुलौघान् दौहित्रसूनुरत तस्य स विश्वरूपः त्वत्स्तोत्रवर्मितमजापयदिन्द्रमाजौ देवत्वदीयमहिमा खलु सर्वजैत्रः षष्ट्या ततो दुहितृभिः सृजतः कुलौघान् दौहित्रसूनुरततस्य स विश्वरूपः त्वत्स्तोत्रवर्मितमजापयदिन्द्रमाजौ देवत्वदीयमहिमा खलु सर्वजैत्रः.
Let me just summarize what happens so far. So in the first stanza, it says, Aparo Daksha. So the Daksha, we all know Daksha Prajapati, who came from the mind of Brahma. Daksha's daughter Parvati, that is a different Daksha. So Aparo Daksha means some other Daksha. There was another Daksha who, if you remember 19th chapter, we learned about the Prachetas, the 10 Prachetas who went and meditated underwater for thousands of years. Then Shiva came, Shiva taught them the Rudra Gita. So in the Prachetas, so they had one son called Daksha. So under Daksha, different Daksha completely. So that Daksha also went several years meditating and all that. And then the Lord appears in front of him with Ashtabahu. That's what comes in the first stanza. And then to develop the world, develop the civilization. And then he gets married to a person called Asikni. And between them, they have lots of sons, right? They have sons to promote the growth of the civilization. But all those sons, when they actually move to a religious place to go learn knowledge and then eventually to spread family and all that, so Narada comes and speaks to them and enlightens them and talks them about the knowledge, and then they decide they don't want to procreate, that they want to complete, like same thing like what happened with Prachetas. They want to completely remain devoted to the Lord and in meditation, so they don't want to marry, they don't want to have any get kids. So and the Daksha gets very angry, and this Daksha is also a very powerful person. So he then curses Narada to say, because you are obstructing what I want my sons to do, you will not be able to reside in one place all the time. You will end up being like a nomad. You will end up being moving all over the place. So that's what happens in the second one, that Rishaye Shapam, he curses Narada. However, Narada being one of the Bhaktottamas, he's one of your highest of devotees, right? But he then takes it as a positive thing. And then that's why Narada kind of becomes the first brand ambassador, right? The way everybody, in the movies and all, they make fun of Narada, it becomes like a comic character. But really, if you think of it, he's the one who spread the word of Narayana everywhere. So he then becomes a person who then travels from place to place to place, spreading the word of Narada. So he says, okay, I'll take your curse, but then I'm going to put it to positive use. So that's what is happening. Then what happens is this Daksha, he then has, because his sons, through his sons, the growth is not happening. He then has daughters. One of the daughter is Aditi, right? So Aditi, as you all know, is the mother of all the Asuras. So Aditi is one of his daughter. And to that Aditi, a son is born called Twasta. And to that Twasta is this another a boy is born called Vishwarupa. So what happened in the hierarchy, what is happening is Indra, Brihaspati, who is the guru of Devas, they get into a fight between Indra and Brihaspati ends up leaving the Devas. So because Brihaspati ends up leaving the Devas get very weak because they don't have a person who guides them. So they go to this person called Vishwarupa and then makes him their guru. So if you remember Narayana Kavacham, the first line starts with Vishwarupa Uvacha. It starts because Vishwarupa becomes the guru of Devas, and in Bhagavatam at this point, Vishwarupa is actually teaching Indra Narayana Kavacham, right? So that's how Narayana Kavacham is part of Bhagavatam, is part of this whole story. So at this point, Vishwarupa then goes and teaches Indra Narayana Kavacham so that he can actually get strength to fight against the Asuras and then take over everything. So that's what has happened so far. So this is the point at which the actual Narayana Kavacham comes in Bhagavatam, right? Of course, it's not there in Narayaneeyam. So we'll skip there. So stanza 4. Pra Shurasena Vishaye Kila Chitraketuhu, comma, Putragrahi Nripatir Angirasa, or you can say it together, Nripatar Angirasaha is that, put a if Angirasah Prabhavat Labdvaika Putramata Tatra Hate Sapatni, and then put a plus Sapatni Sanghaihi. So the ra that is coming after Sanghai, remove the ra, put a visarga and a comma. So it comes together, Sapatni Sanghaihi. Then the next word starts with a A. Amuhyad Avashas. Amuhyadavashas tavamaya yasav. That will be the easiest way to say it. Break the da into it and a. Amuhyadavashas tavamaya yasav. Prakshurasena vishaye kila chitraketuhum putra grahi nrupatiranghirasah prabhavat labdvaika putra mata tatra hate sapatni sanghaihi amuhyadavashastava mayayasam.
प्राक्षूरसेन विषये किल चित्रकेतुः पुत्राग्रही नृपतिरङ्गिरस प्रभावात् लब्ध्वैक पुत्रमथ तत्र हते सपन्ति संगैः अमुह्यदवशस्तवमाययासौ प्राक्षूरसेन विषये किल चित्रकेतुः पुत्राग्रही नृपतिरङ्गिरसः प्रभावात् लब्ध्वैकपुत्रमथ तत्र हते सपन्ति संगैः अमुह्यदवशस्तवमाययासौ
प्राक्षूरसेन विषये किल चित्रकेतुः पुत्राग्रही नृपतिरङ्गिरसः प्रभावात् लब्ध्वैकपुत्रमथ तत्र हते सपत्नी संगैः अमुह्यदवशस्तवमाययासौ प्राक्षूरसेन विषये किल चित्रकेतुः पुत्राग्रही नृपतिरङ्गिरसः प्रभावात् लब्ध्वैकपुत्रमथ तत्र हते सपत्नी संगैः अमुह्यदवशस्तवमाययासौ.
That's fine. Tam naradastu samam angirasa or samam angirasa together dayaluhu comma samprapya tavad upadarshya that ish that is coming is a ish, not a sha. So tavad upadarshya sutasya jivam kasyasmi putra iti tasya gira vimoham, and then put a plus. Tyaktva tvadarchana vidhau nripatim nyayungta. So those last two lines are together. Tam naradastu samamangirasadhayaluhum samprapya tavadupadarshya sutasya jivam kasyasmi putra iti tasya gira vimoham tyaktva tvadarchana vidhau nripatim nyayungta.
तं नारदस्तु सममङ्गिरसादयालुः सम्प्राप्य तावदुपदर्श्य सुतस्य जीवं कस्यास्मि पुत्र इति तस्य गिरा विमोहं त्यक्ता त्वदर्चनविदौ नृपतिं न्ययुङ्क्त.
She with the last fourth line, first word tyaktva.
तं नारदस्तु सममङ्गिरसादयालुः सम्प्राप्य तावदुपदर्श्य सुतस्य जीवं कस्यास्मि पुत्र इति तस्य गिरा विमोहं त्यक्त्वा त्वदर्चनविदौ नृपतिं न्ययुङ्क्त. அந்த இடத்துல அப்படியே நியுங்க்தன்னு அப்படியே முடிச்சா போதுமா?
அவ்வளவுதான், just yeah, end it there.
तं नारदस्तु सममङ्गिरसादयालुः सम्प्राप्य तावदुपदर्श्य सुतस्य जीवं कस्यास्मि पुत्र इति तस्य गिरा विमोहं त्वक्त्या त्वदर्चन विधौ नृपतिं न्ययुङ्क्त.
We've got the fourth line, first word. Tyaktva. Yeah, correct.
तं नारदस्तु सममङ्गिरसादयालुः सम्प्राप्य तावदुपदर्श्य सुतस्य जीवं कस्यास्मि पुत्र इति तस्य गिरा विमोहं त्यक्त्वा त्वदर्चन विधौ नृपतिं न्ययुङ्क्त.
So in fourth and fifth, so whatever was happening about Vishwarupa then teaches Indra Narayana Kavacham. So that is happening up to the first to third. Now there is a parallel or a independent story which is happening in 4, 5 and 6, and they'll eventually connect later. There was a king called Chitraketu, and so he, all of this. So that King Chitraketu was with the blessing of the sage Angiras, who's one of the Saptarishis. So with the help of his sage, he then got blessings whereby this Chitraketu had multiple wives, and none of them had children. So, but with the blessings of Angiras, he was able to get one of his wife, then became pregnant, and that one wife of his then gave birth to a child. So when that child was born, all the other wives then got very jealous, and they actually ended up killing the newborn baby, all the other wives. So then this Chitraketu got very emotionally upset, and then he was about to give his life away because he was surprised how amongst his wives they were quarreling and how that newborn child was killed. So then he goes back to Angiras, the Saptarishi, and then tells him about why all this is happening to him and how his child is dead. And then Angiras, along with Narada, then tell him, once a soul has departed a body, it cannot come back into that body, that is gone. And then to prove that, they get the soul of the child which was there previously in its Sukshma form in front of Chitraketu, and that soul comes in and asks Chitraketu, Kasyasmi putra iti. He's like, whose son am I? Right? Because what it is trying to tell Chitraketu is, in one instance of my birth, you are my father. In the next birth, somebody else is my father. And my next birth, I'm going to take someone else is going to be my father. So while you are attached to me, saying that my child has been killed, that soul has moved on, right? It is no longer your child and you are no longer my father. So that when it comes and asks Chitraketu that question, is it whose son am I? Chitraketu then realizes that while he is still attached to that particular body as his son, the soul which was there in that body has actually moved on, and it's confused as to who is Chitraketu, as which of my janmam which of my birth were you my father, right? So that's when he realizes about the delusion that he lives in, and then he eventually renounces everything and then goes into even kind of quits everything and gets into worship. So stanza 6. So this whole thing is put in there to kind of help explain that concept, right, of how all of us, of course, right, that are going through. So stanza 6. Stotram cha mantramapi Naradatota labdhva, toshaya shesha vapusho nanute tapasyan vidyadharadhi patitam sahi saptaratre, and then put a plus, labdhvapya kuntha matir anva bhajat. If you want to break it, matir anva bhajat bhavantam. So again, the last two lines are together here. Stotram cha mantramapi naradatoota labdhva toshaya shesha vapusho nanute tapasyan vidyadharadhipatitam sahi saptaratre labdhvapya kunthamatiranva bhajat bhavantam.
Stotram cha mantramapi naradatoota labdhva toshaya shesha vapusho nanute tapasyan vidyadharadhipatitam sahi saptaratre labdhvapya kunthamatiranva bhajat bhavantam. Stotram cha mantramapi naradatoota labdhva toshaya shesha vapusho nanute tapasyan vidyadharadhipatitam sahi saptaratre labdhvapya kunthamatiranva bhajat bhavantam.
Stotram cha mantramapi naradota labdva toshaya shesha vapusho nanute tapasyan vidyadharadhipatitam sahi saptaratre labdvapya kunthamatiranva bhajat bhavantam.
The first line, Narada Tota. I think you've missed the da there. But go ahead.
Okay. Stotram cha mantramapi naradatoota labdva toshaya shesha vapusho nanute tapasyan विद्याधराधिपतितां सहि सप्त रात्रे लब्ध्वाप्यकुण्ठमतिरन्वभजद्भवन्तम्
तस्मै मृणाल धवलेन सहस्र शीर्ष्णा कॉमा रूपेण बद्ध नुति सिद्ध गणावृतेन प्रादुर्भवन नचिरतो, so double na coming there, प्रादुर्भवन नचिरतो nutibihi, put a if there, nutibih prasanno comma dattvatma tattvam anugrihya tiro da tha. So first da, second da, and then tha, tiro da tha. तस्मै मृणाल धवलेन सहस्र शीर्ष्णा रूपेण बद्धनुति सिद्ध गणावृतेन प्रादुर्भवन्न चिरतो नुतिभिः प्रसन्नो दत्त्वात्म तत्त्वमनुगृह्य तिरो दधाथ.
तस्मै मृणालधवलेन सहस्रशीर्ष्णा रूपेण बद्धनुति सिद्धगणावृतेन प्रादुर्भवन्न चरितोऽनुतिभिः प्रसन्नो दत्त्वात्मतत्त्वमनुगृह्य तिरोधधाथ.
The third line, pradhurbhavan, I think you said charito, it's na chirato. Chi and ra.
तस्मै मृणालधवलेन सहस्रशीर्ष्णा रूपेण बद्धनुति सिद्धगणावृतेन प्रादुर्भवन्न चिरतो नुतिभिः प्रसन्नो दत्त्वात्मतत्त्वमनुगृह्य तिरोधधाथ.
तस्मै मृणालधवलेन सहस्रशीर्ष्णा रूपेण बद्धनुति सिद्धगणावृतेन प्रादुर्भवन्न चिरतो नुतिभिः प्रसन्नो दत्त्वात्मतत्त्वमनुगृह्य तिरोदधाथ. तस्मै मृणालधवलेन सहस्रशीर्ष्णा रूपेण बद्धनुति सिद्धगणावृतेन प्रादुर्भवन्न चिरतो नुतिभिः प्रसन्नो दत्त्वात्मतत्त्वमनुगृह्य तिरोदधाथ.
त्वत् भक्त मौलिरत सोपि च लक्षं, and then put a plus, varshani harshulamana bhuvaneshu kamam. So the first two lines are together. Sangapayan guna ganam tava sundaribihi comma sanghati reka, that word you can say together, sanghati reka rahito lalitam chachara. त्वद्भक्तमौलिरतसोऽपि च लक्षं वर्षाणि हर्षुलमना भुवनेषु कामं संगापयन् गुणगणं तव सुन्दरीभिः संगातिरेकरहितो ललितं चचार.
त्वद्भक्तमौलिरथसोऽपि च लक्षं वर्षाणि हर्षुलमना भुवनेषु कामं संगापयन् गुणगणं तव सुन्दरीभिः संगातिरेकरहितो ललितं चचार. त्वद्भक्तमौलिरथसोऽपि च लक्षं वर्षाणि हर्षुलमना भुवनेषु कामं संगापयन् गुणगणं तव सुन्दरीभिः संगातिरेकरहितो ललितं चचार.
त्वद्भक्तमौलिरतसोऽपि च लक्षं वर्षाणि हर्षुलमना भुवनेषु कामं संगापयन् गुणगणं तव सुन्दरीभिः संगातिरेकरहितो ललितं चचार. त्वद्भक्तमौलिरथसोऽपि च लक्षं वर्षाणि हर्षुलमना भुवनेषु कामं संगापयन् गुणगणं तव सुन्दरीभिः संगातिरेकरहितो ललितं चचार.
So what then happens is when Chitraketu realizes, right, when that when Narada and Angiras are able to bring his previous son, and then he realizes that lesson from the son, he then renounces everything that he has in his kingdom, and then he goes into penance, right? For that's why he does it for tapasyan for 7 days, sapta ratre, for 7 nights continuously he's doing tapas, and then he's meditating on Adishesha is who he's meditating on, the form. So like we said in Dhruva Charitram and other things is you can meditate on any form of the Lord, and the form of the Lord you meditate in is which the Lord is going to come. So eventually the Lord comes in the form of Adishesha, which is completely like white color. So Adishesha is supposed to be color is white, like the Kalia snake was black, right? That's how it was described. So the Lord comes in form of Adishesha and then teaches him the knowledge of the Atman and gives him all the jnanam, right? And then once that happens, he then becomes even more of your devotee. So that's why it says Bhakta Mauli. So amongst your devotees, he becomes one of the top of the devotees, Chitraketu. And then he then goes around wandering all over the world with absolutely nothing, and then happily, without any attachment to any senses or any pleasure. And then he's constantly praying to you and wandering about. So that's what is happening till 8. Atyanta Sanga Vilayaya Bhavat Pranunno, Nunam Sa Rupya Giramapya Mahat Samaje. Nishank, so the next word, Nishankam Anka Krita Vallabham Anga Jarim. So you can clearly break it if you want. Nishankam Anka Krita Vallabham Anga Jarim, Tam Shankaram Parihasan Numayabhisheve. You kind of have to say it together. It's Parihasan Umayabhisheve, but it becomes double na because of the in. So Parihasan Numayabhishepe.
Rajesh, on the second line, Nunamsya Rupya Girimapya irukku. Is it
Girimapya, correct, yeah. Oh, what did I say?
I think it was you. I think you said it like Giramapya.
Oh, Girimapya, mountain there, yeah. Atyanta Sanga Vilayaya Bhavat Pranunno Nunam Sarupya Girimapya Mahat Samaje Nishankamanka Krita Vallabhamangajarim Tam Shankaram Parihasan Numaya Bhishepe.
Rajesh, second line, Nunam sa Rupyava, Raupyava.
Rupya, form.
Atyanta Sanga Vilayaya Bhavat Prapunno Nunam Sarupya Girimapya Mahat Samaje Nishankamanka Krita Vallabhamangajarim Tam Shankaram Parihasannu Numayabhishepe.
See, first line last word. Bhavat Pranunno. I think you said pa or something there.
Pati Sultana. Okay. Atyanta Sanga Vilayaya Bhavat Pranunno Nunam Sarupya Girimapya Mahat Samaje Nishankamanka Krita Vallabhamangajarim Tam Shankaram Parihasannumayabhishepe.
Atyanta Sanga Vilayaya Bhavat Pranunno Nunam Sarupya Girimapya Mahot Samaje Nishankamanka Kruta Vallabhamanga Jarim Tam Shankaram Harihasannumayabhishepe. Atyanta Sanga Vilayaya Bhavat Pranunno Nunam Sarupya Girimapya Mahot Samaje
Mahat Samaje.
Nunam Sarupya Girimapya Mahat Samaje Nishankamanka Kruta Vallabhamanga Jarim Tam Shankaram Harihasannumayabhishepe.
Last line, Tam Shankaram Parihasan.
Tam Shankaram Parihasannumayabhishepe.
Nisambhramas Twayam Ayachita. You can break it there. Nisambhramas Twayam Ayachita Shapa Moksho, Vritrasura Twamupagamya Surendra Yodhi Bhaktyatma Tattva Katanaihi, put is Katanais Samare Vichitram, comma Shatrorapi Brahmamapasya Gataha, is there, put a if Gatah Padamte. Nissambhramastvayamaya chitashapa moksho vritra surattomupagamya surendra yodhi bhaktyaatma tattva katanai samare vichitram shatrorapi brahmamapasya gatah padam te.
Nissambhramastvayamaya vritrasu suratva mupagamya surendra yodhi bhaktyaatma tattva khatanai samare vichitram shatrorapi brahmama pasya gatah padam te. Nissambhramastvayamaya chitashapa vritra suratva mupagamya surendra yodhi bhaktyaatma tattva khatanai samare vichitram shatropi brahmam pasya gatah padam te.
Last line, can you try again? Shatrorapi.
Shatrorapi brahmam pasya gatah padam te.
Nissambhramastvayamaya chitashapa moksho vrutra suratva mupagamya surendra yodhi bhaktyaatma tattva katanai samare vichitram shatrorapi brahmamapasya gatah padam te. Nissambhramastvayamaya chitashapa moksho vrutra suratva mupagamya surendra yodhi bhaktyaatma tattva katanai samare vichitram shatrorapi brahmamapasya gatah padam te.
So a couple of interesting things are happening in this 9 and 10 and how it kind of comes to a conclusion. So Chitraketu then, like we said, right, he renounces everything and he's going around completely wandering with complete surrender. So there was still certain senses were not fully, he had not completely given up. There was still some things attached, he was attached to it. So to eradicate it, it says that at your prompting, right, Bhavat Pranunnam, because you prompted this, he ends up going to Kailasha, where he sees Shiva, Parvati, and other Bhuta Ganangal. And then he's seeing Parvati sitting on Shiva's lap. So when he sees that, this Chitraketu then goes and ridicules Shiva, saying, how can you be attached, right? You'll have to be completely detached. And then all that stuff, he makes comments, right? Ridiculing Shiva, that how can you have Parvati sitting on your lap and all that. So when that happens, Parvati then curses him that he's going to be born as an Asura. But because Chitraketu, here he was also, we had saw in the earlier one, right? He had also evolved and he had got all the knowledge from Adishesha and all. He said, you know what, I'm going to take that curse. He didn't even oppose that curse. So he's then born in his next birth. Now, this ties to the first half of the story. If you kind of rewind and remember what we discussed about how Vishwarupa was teaching Narayana Kavacha, right, to Indra. So this Vishwarupa, like we said, if you remember, he was born to Aditi's son's son is Vishwarupa. He's Aditi's grandson. And Vishwarupa's father was the person who was Twasta, actually had married an Asura, because of which Vishwarupa was a little bit of an Asura clan person also, but he was really helping the Devas. But every time he used to do the offerings for the Devas, he used to keep a portion of it for the Asuras as well. He used to have a little bit of partiality. So while he was primarily helping Indra with Narayana Kavacham and everything, he was also helping Asuras a little bit on the side. So when Indra came to know about it, he goes and kills Vishwarupa off, right? He goes and kills Vishwarupa and Vishwarupa dies. So when Vishwarupa dies, his father Twasta, who then gets very angry, and then he goes and does a lot of homams to have somebody who can go kill Indra. Now this is where an interesting one is happening, and they cite this about when you're chanting Vedam, why the swaras, right? So the Dirgha Swarita and the Swaritas, you have to say properly. is because, and that's how it is quoted, is this person Twasta, he's praying that he needs a son who strong enough to kill his enemy, which is Indra. But then he misses some swaram somewhere, and it means ends up being the opposite. That is, he needs a son who can be killed by his enemy, right? So it turned out that opposite effect is happening. So that the person who comes from the homam when he is doing is a asura, is a called vratasura is happening. So this vratasura is coming out of the flame by Twasta's penance, and then vratasura goes to fight with Indra because Indra killed Twasta's son. Now this vratasura asura is nobody other than this Chitraketu, who was cursed by Parvati to be born as an asura. So this Chitraketu is born as Vratasura, and he comes, and now he's in a battle with Indra. So in the battle with Indra, because of his knowledge of being Chitraketu. So as you know, some of you I'm sure are familiar with Bhagavad Gita a lot as well. It says that some of the spiritual knowledge you have gained in your previous lifetimes continue on unknowing to you. So this Vratasura who is born, he now has so much knowledge about everything that he, in the battle against Indra, he teaches Indra in knowledge. So he says while he's getting defeated by Indra in the battle, he is able to impart knowledge to Indra, which even Indra did not have. So Indra isn't really amazed at it. And then, but anyway, this Vratasura then gets killed by Indra, but he imparts so much knowledge, and eventually he reaches Vaikuntham. So that's what he says, that even though he was born as an asura in this, the knowledge he had from his previous births was so superior that he even had better knowledge than Indra. And then eventually he reached Te Padam, he reached your abode after the battle with Indra. So that's how these two stories are getting tied here. So stanza 11 then, last one. Tvat sevanena ditirindra vadodhyatapi, comma, tan pratyutendra suhrudo marutobhilebhe dushtashayepi shubhadaiva bhavan nisheva, comma, tattadrishas tvamava mam pavanalayesha. Tvatsevanena ditirindra vadodhyatapi tan pratyutendra suhrudo maruto bhilebhe dushtashayepi shubhadaiva bhavan nisheva tattadrishastvamavamam pavanalayesha.
त्वत्सेवनेन दितिरिन्द्रवधोत्यतापि तान् प्रत्युतेन्द्र सुहृदो मरुतोऽभिलेभे दुष्टाशयेऽपि शुभदैव भवन्निषेवा तत्तादृशस्त्वमवमां पवनालयेश त्वत्सेवनेन दितिरिन्द्रवधोत्यतापि तान् प्रत्युतेन्द्र सुहृदो मरुतोऽभिलेभे दुष्टाशयेऽपि शुभदैव भवन्निषेवा तत्तादृशस्त्वमवमां पवनालयेश.
त्वत्सेवनेन तितिरन्ध्रवदोद्यतापि तान् प्रत्युतेन्द्र सुहृदो मरुतोऽभिलेभे दुष्टाशयेऽपि शुभदैव भवन्निषेवा तत्तादृशस्त्वमवमां पवनालयेश.
Here we go. First line. Ditirindra.
Thank you. Tvatsevanena ditirindra vadodhyatapi तान् प्रत्युतेन्द्र सुहृदो मरुतो भिलेभे दुष्टाशयेऽपि शुभदैव भवन्निषेवा तत्तादृशस्त्वमवमां पवनालयेश. Shri Krishna Namaha.
Okay, so we'll jump on to 41 now. I think Ramesh and Sangeeta Prasad, you can be students. So this 41, I won't go through the meaning on this, but this is the continuation of the Putana Moksham which happened in 40. So Brajeshwaraha is there, put a ish. Brajeshwarash Shauri Vacho Nishamya, comma, Samabrajan nadvani. Double na. Samabrajan nadvani. Bhita chetaha. Nishpishta. Nishesha. So all shas coming there. Nishpishta. Nishesha. Tarum nirikshya. Comma. Kanchit padartam sharanam gatastvam. So this is the two-liner tune here. Brajeshwara shauri vacho nishamhyam samabrajannadvani bhita chetaha nishpishta nisheshatarum nirikshya kanchit padartam sharanam gatastvam.
Brajeshwara sauri vacho nishamya samavrajannatvani pita cheta nishpishta nisheshatarum nirikshya kanchit padartam sharanam gadastvam. Brajeshwara sauri vache nishamya samavrajannatvani pita cheta nishpishta nisheshatarum nirikshya kanchit padartam charanam gadastvam.
Ramesh, the Shauri Vacho, second time you said Vache, first time you said Vacho correctly. Shauri Vacho, first line, second word. Okay.
Vrajeshwara shauri vacho nishamya samavrajannatvani bhita chetaha nishpishta nisheshatarum nirikshya kanchit padartam sharanam gatastvam. Vrajeshwara shauri vacho nishamya samavrajannatvani bhita chetaha nishpishta nisheshatarum nirikshya kaschit padartam sharanam gatastvam.
Kanchit Pada, last word. Kanchit.
Kanchit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nishamya Gopi Vachanadu Dantam. Vachanadu Dantam, comma. Sarvepi Gopa Bhaya Vismayandhaha. That's one word. Vismayandhaha. Tvat Patitam Ghora Pishacha Deham, comma. Dehur Vidureta Kuthara Krittam. Double the Krittam. Nishamya Gopi Vachanadu Sarvepi Gopa Bhaya Vismayandhaha Tvatpatitam Ghora Pishacha Deham Dehur Vidureta Kuthara Krittam.
Nishamya gopi vachananutantam sarvepi gopa bhaya vishmayanta vatpatitam ghora pishasha deham dehur vidureta kutara kritam. Nishamya gopi vachananutantam.
Sorry, Ramesh, Vachanadu Dantam, double the Vachanadu Dantam.
Nishamya gopi vachanadudantam sarvepi gopa bhaya vishmayantaha vatpaditam ghora pishasha deham dehur vidureta kutara kritam.
Rajesh, and the second line, is it Vismayandaha or Vismayandaha?
Yandhaha. Yanda.
Yandaha. Okay. Nishamya gopi vachanadudantam sarvepi gopa bhaya vismayandaha tvatpatitam gora pishasha deham dehur vidureta kutara krittam. Nishamya gopi vachanadudantam sarvepi gopa bhaya vismayandaha tvatpatitam gora pishasha deham dehur vidureta kutara krittam.
Tvat Pita Puta Sthana So you can, if you want to break it, sthana tacharirat. So double, it's ich and then a cha coming. Puta sthana tacharirat, comma. Samuchalan nuchataro, double na there. Samuchalan nuchataro hi dhumaha. The next word, you will have to break it at shankam adhat agharava. That might be the easiest way to say it. So shankam adhat agharava. But you can try to say it together, but this is what I felt would be easy. So shankam adhat agaravaha is a put a ich sound. Garava kimeshaha. Put a visarga after kimesha and then a comma. Kimeshaha. Kim chandano gaulgula votha veti. Twatnita puta sthanata chariratem samuchalannuchataro hi dhumaha shankhamadhat agharavah kimeshah kim chandano gaulgula votha veti.
त्वत्पीदभूतस्तनतच्चरीरात् समुच्चलन्नुच्चदरो हि धूमः शङ्कामतातकरावकिमेषः किं चान्तनो गौकुलवो तवेति.
Ramesh, the third line,
Huh?
shankam adhat agharavah.
I think my script is not correct here.
Shankam adhat agharavah.
Shankam adhat
Agharavah.
agharava.
Yeah. I mean, you say say it that way, but say it when you say it together fast, you will not see a difference. Yeah.
Sangamadhat agharava. Right?
Shankam adhat.
Adha agharava.
Correct.
Shangam adha
No.
agharava.
Then shankam adhat, you're saying. Shankam adhat.
Adha.
Yeah.
Shankam adhat agharava.
Correct. Yeah.
त्वत्पीदभूतस्तनतच्चरीरात् समुच्चलन्नुच्चदरो हि धूमः शङ्गाम् आदत आगरव किमेषः किं चान्तनो घौतुलवो तदेति.
I think on that you are saying adhata, you are saying. Shankam adhat.
शङ्काम्
No. Adhat. Shankam adhat agarava.
शङ्काम् अधा आगरव.
Correct. Yeah.
त्वत्पीतपूतस्तनतच्चरीरात् समुच्चलन्नुच्चरतो हि धूमः शङ्काम् अदात् आगरः किमेषः किं चान्दनौ गुलवोत वेति.
Okay, say it this time. At a couple of places I wanted to correct, but go ahead.
Okay.
Copy.
त्वत्पीतपूतस्तनत्वच्चरीरात् समुच्चलन्नुच्चरतो हि धूमः
Ucchataro. Samuchalannuchataro.
नुच्चतरौ. Okay. त्वत्पीतपूतस्तनत्वच्चरीरात् समुच्चलन्नुच्चतरो हि धूमः शङ्काम् अदात् आगरवः किमेषः किं चान्दनो गाउलगुलवोत वेति.
This one. That's okay, you got it. I think this is the only tough, this is the only tongue twister stanza in this. So Madanga Sangasya Phalam na dure, comma, Shanena Tavat Bhavatamapi Syat Ityullapan Vallava Talla Jebhyaha, comma, Tvam Putanam Atanuta. You can break it with the ma if you want. Putanam atanutaha. Is that put a is sound? Atanutas sugandhim. Madanga sangasya phalam na dure kshanena tavat bhavatam apisyat ityullapan vallavatallajebhyah tvam putanamatanutha sugandhim.
Rajesh, in the last line, Bhutana Matanuta.
I mean, no, if you want to break it, you break it at that ma as putanam, tvam putanam atanutas sugandhim. If you want to break it.
Matanus Sukanti.
Matanutas sugandhim.
Matanutas Matanga Sankashya Balanna Dhure Shanena Tavat Bhavata Pisyayat
Bhavatam apisyat. Bhavatam api syat.
Mapi Syat. Okay, Tarsumi Syat. Ityullapan Vallapatalla Jepya Twambhutana Matanutas Sukantim.
Correct.
Matanga Sankashya Balam na Dhure Shanena Tavat Bhavata Mapisyat Ityullapan Vallapatalla Jepya.
Jebhyaha. And if you don't have a visarga, just put a visarga there. Talla jebhyaha.
Oh, Jepya. Ityullapan Panvallapatalla Jepyaha Twambhutana Matanuta Sukantim.
Madanga sangasya phalanna dure shanena tavad bhavatam apisyat ityullapan vallavatalla jebhyaha tvam putanam atanuta sugandhim. Madanga sangasya phalanna dure shanena tavad bhavatam apisyat ityullapan vallavatalla jebhyaha tvam putanam atanuta sugandhim.
Chitram pishachya na hataha. Is there put a ich sound? Hatah kumaraha, comma. Chitram puraivakati shaurinedham iti prashamsan kila gopaloko, comma. Bhavan mukhaloka rase nyamangshit. Nyamangshit. Ing sound in between. Nyamangshit. Chitram pishachyana hatah kumaraha chitram puraivakati shaurinedam iti prashamsan kila gopaloko bhavan mukhaloka rase nyamangshit.
Chitram Pisashyana Hatas Kumarakaha Chitram Puraivakati Saurinetam Iti Prasamshan Kilakopalo Bhavan Mukalo Kare Senyamangshit.
Rase. In the last line. Mukhaloka rase nyamangshit.
One second.
Bhavan Mukaloka Raseva.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
1 second, Ramesh. On the first line, Chitram Pishachaya Nahata Kumarash Chitram Nirkenika.
So just remove that ish and put a visarga and a comma. That's all it is.
Kumaraha. So it becomes
Kumaraha, yeah.
Kumaraha Chitram. Okay.
Yeah, correct. That's it. And then Ramesh, and the hatas you said is hatah. And the hatha and kumara visarga is a ich sound, H sound. Hatah kumaraha.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And Visarka on a Hatak. Yeah.
And the visarga on the ich sound.
Okay. Chitram Pisachya Hatak कुमारः चित्रं पुरैवा कतिशौरिनेतम् इति प्रशंसन् किल कोपलेक
Loko.
इति प्रशंसन् किल कोपलेको भवन्मुखालोकरसे न्यमांक्षि.
Yeah, and the third line, Gopa Loko. Okay, I think second time you said something different, but just make note. இல்ல அந்த அதுக்கு மிந்தின portion. இதி பிரசம்சன்
किल कोपलेको
Loko. Loko.
चित्रं sorry चित्रं पिशाश्चान हतः कुमारः चित्रं भूरेवा कतिशौरिनेदम् इति प्रशंसन् किल गोपलोको भवन्मुखालोकरसे न्यमांक्षीत्. चित्रं पिशाच्चान हतः कुमारः चित्रं भूरैवा कतिशौरिनेदम् इति प्रशंसन् किल गोपलोको भवन्मुखालोकरसे न्यमांक्षीत्.
दिने दिनेत प्रति वृद्ध Lakshmihi. So the ra that is there, remove it, put a visarga and a comma. Lakshmihi, comma. Next word starts with the a. Akshina Mangalya Shato Brajoyam Bhavan Nivasadai, double na, Bhavan Nivasadai Vasudeva, comma. Pramoda Sandraha is there, put a if sound, F. Sandraf Parito Vireje. Dinhe dineta prativriddha lakshmihi akshina mangalya shato brajoyam bhavan nivasa daiva sudeva pramoda sandrah parito vireje.
दिने दिनेत प्रतिवृत्त लक्ष्मीः अक्षीणमाङ्गल्य सतो व्रजोऽयं भवन्निवासतायि वासुदेव प्रमोदसान्द्रपरितो विरेजे.
And it's second or third line, however you have it, the Bhavan Nivasadai.
भवन्निवासादयि
Correct, yeah.
वासुदेव. दिने दिनेत प्रतिवृत्त लक्ष्मीः अक्षीणमाङ्गल्य सतो व्रजोऽयं भवन्निवासदायि वासुदेव
Bhavan Nivasadai.
निवासादयि.
Correct.
Split is the problem. भवन्निवासादयि वासुदेव प्रमोदसान्द्रपरितो विरेजे.
दिने दिनेत प्रतिवृत्त लक्ष्मीः अक्षीणमाङ्गल्य शतो व्रजोऽयं भवन्निवासादयि वासुदेव प्रमोदसान्द्रः परितो विरेजे. दिने दिनेत प्रतिवृत्त लक्ष्मीः अक्षीणमाङ्गल्य शतो व्रजोऽयं भवन्निवासादयि वासुदेव प्रमोदसान्द्रः परितो विरेजे.
Griheshu te komala rupa hasa mitaha is there. Put a ich sound and put a plus. So essentially those two lines we're going to say it together. So hasa mitah katha sankulitaha is there. Again put a ich sound. Sankulitah kamanyaha. So this entire line is together. Vritteshu, double the Vritteshu Krityeshu Bhavan Niriksha, and then again a plus. Samagataha is that, put a if sound. Samagata Pratyaham Atyanandan, or you can say it together, Pratyaham Atyanandan. So in this case both those lines are coming together. गृहेषु ते कोमलरूपहासमितः कथा सङ्कुलिताः कमन्यः वृत्तेषु कृत्येषु भवन्निरीक्षा समागताः प्रत्यहमत्यनन्दन्
गृहेषु ते कोमलरूपहासमितकथा शङ्कुलिताः कमन्यः शङ्कुलिताः कमन्यः वृत्तेषु कृत्येषु भवन्निरीक्षा समाकथा प्रत्यहमद्यनन्दन् गृहेषु ते कोमलरूपहासमितकथा शङ्कुलिताः कमन्यः वृत्तेषु कृत्येषु भवन्निरीक्षा समाकथा प्रत्यहमद्यनन्दन्
गृहेषु ते कोमलरूपहासमितः कथा सङ्कुलिताः कमन्यः वृत्तेषु कृत्येषु भवन्निरीक्षा समागता प्रत्यहमत्यनन्दन् गृहेषु ते कोमलरूपहासमितः कथा सङ्कुलिताः कमन्यः वृत्तेषु कृत्येषु भवन्निरीक्षा समागता प्रत्यहमत्यनन्दन्
Answer 8. Aho kumaro mayi datta drishtihi, comma, smitam kritam mam prati vatsakena ehyehi. So this is hya yehi ehyehi mam ityupasarya. If you want to break it, mam ityupasarya pani. Some books have panim, so we changed it to pani. So if you have that correction, just make it, and then a comma after pani. Tvaisha kim kim na kritam vadhubihi. Aho kumaro mai datta drishtihi smitam kritam mam prativatsakena ehyehi mamityupasarya pani tvahisha kim kim na kritam vadhubihi.
अहो कुमारे मयि दत्तदृष्टिः स्मितं कृतं मां प्रतिवत्सकेन एहेहि मामित्युपसाद्य पाणि त्वयि स किं न कृतं वधूभिः.
Ramesh, on the first line, kumaro. Is it kumare? Aho kumaro.
अहो कुमारो मयि दत्तदृष्टिः स्मितं कृतं मां प्रतिवत्सकेन येहि मामित्युपसाद्य पाणि त्वयि स किं न कृतं वधूभिः.
अहो कुमारो मयि दत्तदृष्टिः स्मितं कृतं मां प्रतिवत्सकेन एह्येहि माम् इत्युपसार्य पाणि त्वयि किं न कृतं वधूभिः. अहो कुमारो मयि दत्तदृष्टिः स्मितं कृतं मां प्रतिवत्सकेन एह्येहि मामित्युपसार्य पाणि त्वयि किं न कृतं वधूभिः.
Bhavat vapuhu. Is there put is on bhavat vapus sparshana kautukena, comma, karat karam gopa vadhu janena nitas tvam atamra saroja mala, and then put a plus, vyalambi lolamba tulam alasihi. So here Bhattipad is saying that when the gopis are carrying baby Krishna, so it's like how, like any of us, when we take the baby or we're playing with any pets, we say, oh, look, the baby is looking at me, he's smiling at me. They keep comparing with each other as they are carrying the baby Krishna here. And then as and they are bhavat vapu. When they're sparshana, when they're touching your body, when they're touching your form, they are all extremely happy as they are touching you. And then they are now, you are now jumping from hand of one gopika to the other gopika, as if, so that's why neat to matamra saroja mala, as if a bee is jumping from one flower to another flower, right? Similarly, you are now being passed around from one of the gopi's hands to the other gopi's hands, as if we are stringing a set of lotus together. So essentially, the gopikas are playing around with playing with baby Krishna here. That's what is happening in the last few stanzas as well. Bhavat vapusparshana kautukena karat karam gopa vadhu janena Neetastwamatamra sarojamala vyalam vilolam batula malasi.
Bhavat vapusparshana kautukena karat karam gopavadhu janena Neetastvamadram matamra sarojamala Vyalam bikolam badula malasi Bhavat vapushparshana kautukena karat karam gopavadhu janena Neetastwamatamra sarojamala Vyalam bikolam badula malasi
Bhavat vapusparshana kautukena karat karam gopavadhu janena Neetastwamatamra sarojamala vyalam bilolamba tulamalasi.
Vyalambhi, fourth line. Vyalambhi.
Bhavat vapusparshana kautukena karat karam gopavadhu janena Neetastwamatamra sarojamala vyalam bilolam batulam alasihi.
Alasihi.
Alasihi. Okay.
Just voice cut off briefly. So, Nipaya yanti stanam ankagam. You can say it together. Stanam ankagam twam, comma, biloka yanti vadanam hasanti dasham yashoda katamam na bheje, comma, sa tadrishaha is there, put a if tadrisha pahi hare gadanmam. Nipayayanti stanamankagam tvam bilokayanti vadanam hasanti dasham yashoda katamam na bheje satadrishah pahi hare gadhanmam.
Nipayayanti stanamankakam tvam Bilokyayanti vatanam hasanti Dasham yashota katamam na bheje Sada drushapaki hare katanmam Nipayayanti stanamankakam tvam Bilokyayanti vananam hasanti
Vadanam hasanti.
Bilokyayanti vatanam hasanti Dasham yashodha katamam na bheje Satadrushabhaki hare katanmam
Nipayayanti sanamankagam tvam vilokayanti vadanam hasanti dasham yashoda katamana bheje satadrishah pahi hare gadanmam.
And the and the third line, Dasham Yashoda Katamam na bheje.
Mama, okay. Engada maan irukku. So mom.
Yeah.
Okay. Nipayayanti stanamankagam tvam vilokayanti vadanam hasanti dasham yashoda katamam na bheje satadrishah पाहि हरे गदान्मां श्रीकृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः
Yeah, so we'll end the class here today. Om Sandhanandhavabodhatmakamanupamitam Kaladeshavadebhyam Nirmuktam Nityamuktam Nigamashatasahasrena Nirbhasyamanam Aspashtam Drishtamatre Punarurupurusharthatmakam Brahmatattvam Tattavad Bhadi Sakshat Guru Pavanapure Hanta Bhagyam Shaha कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि।